Filming for the Butterfly Labyrinth has turned into a whirlwind no one saw coming, and tonight we're diving right into it. You're watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you love deep dives into the stories everyone is whispering about, hit subscribe and stay with me, because what's happening between Ozan Baba and Sinem on this Spanish set is making the entire entertainment world lean in a little closer. From the very first clapperboard in Madrid to the night shoots in Tenerife, their names have been everywhere, whispered in corridors, argued about in comment sections, and dissected in fan pages. Is it just powerful screen chemistry, or is something more complicated brewing behind the camera? Let's go behind the scenes and piece together how a simple working friendship started a storm of curiosity, sweetness, and, yes, jealousy. Ozan stepped into this project determined to leave his mark on Spanish television. Cast as a former secret operative who's trying to outrun his past, he took the preparation personally. He hit the gym before sunrise, fought with stunt coordinators until he memorized every movement, and even worked with a coach to refine his accent and cadence for emotional scenes. People on set joked that Ozan arrived each day already in character. Focused, guarded, and with a gaze that could say more than a page of dialogue. Meanwhile, Sinem, playing a fiercely intuitive journalist entangled in a web of secrets, found a rhythm that balanced precision with warmth. She paid attention, to props, to beats, to the people around her, and the crew noticed. From day one, their work ethic aligned, and that alignment was the thread that pulled everything tighter. At first, everything looked purely professional. The two arrived on set separately, reviewed their lines with the director, and walked through blocking like clockwork. But the long days of filming began to soften the edges between them. The first rumor started during a breezy afternoon break in Madrid. Ozan and Sinem shared a table, 2 coffees, a stack of scripts, and laughter that lingered after they returned to their marks. A production assistant snapped a quick story for her private account, and it somehow made its way out into the wild. Those 30 seconds were enough to ignite endless speculation. Fans cut the clip into short loops and wrote breathless captions about glances, smiles, and the way Ozan leaned in when Sinem spoke. The internet gave them a nickname and declared them everyone's new obsession. As preview footage trickled onto social media, the enthusiasm only grew. Short trailers caught them in scenes heavy with tension. Hands brushing as they exchange a file, a charged silence before a confession, a split-second smile after a close call. People watching from the outside swore that it didn't feel like acting. The energy between them had an ease to it, a give and take that made every moment feel larger than it was written. Even inside the production bubble, a few voices started to murmur that they were witnessing something rare, 2 actors so in sync that the set quieted when they worked together. But with the praise came static. One person in particular wasn't comfortable with the closeness, Sarah Bluma. She and Ozan had a history, and while their chapter had closed, the echo of it wasn't gone. As filming ramped up, Sarah's posts on social media shifted. They weren't direct or named, but they had an unmistakable tone, musings about loyalty, reflections on being forgotten, questions about promises that people break when the cameras start rolling. Overnight, the internet turned into an interpretive choir. Was she talking about Ozan? Was jealousy creeping in? Everyone had a theory, and each theory made the next day on set a little heavier. Ozan and Sinem, aware of the spotlight and the story swirling around them, started moving carefully. Without ever speaking it aloud, they created boundaries to protect the work. They avoided leaving the studio at the same time. They didn't pose together for casual photos, even when the crew begged for a fun snapshot to mark a long day. They refrained from posting anything that could be stitched into narratives they never agreed to be part of. Their caution, rather than cooling the curiosity, intensified it. People wondered what secrecy meant. The less the pair fed the rumor mill, the louder it got. Then came a day that pulled the entire production into a kind of hush. The script called for an emotionally naked scene. A confrontation that cracked open both characters, showing everything they'd been hiding. Ozan's character had to admit the cost of his choices, Sinem's character had to expose her fear of trusting him. The silence before the first take felt like the pause before lightning. When the director called action, they gave something that went beyond memorized lines. Their voices trembled at exactly the moments real people tremble. Their eyes held each other as if they were terrified of looking elsewhere. By the time the director called cut, no one moved. The camera crew stayed frozen. A makeup artist lowered her brush. A hush spread because everyone felt it. This wasn't just good, it was personal on a level that caught people off guard. Clips from that day, sanctioned, carefully edited, and meant to promote the series, found their way online and exploded. Fans dissected the subtle ways their bodies leaned closer after a burst of anger. They wrote detailed threads about how Ozan softened right before Sinem's character confessed something painful, and how Sinem met him with steel and compassion at once. The momentum made the set atmosphere shift. Every lunch, every shared look, every quick exchange of notes during rehearsals was suddenly seen through a magnifying glass. Some crew members, without meaning harm, noticed and talked. They commented on how Ozan tended to shield Sinem from unnecessary noise, taking calls for both of them when scheduling got messy, flagging the assistant director when the set grew too crowded, stepping in to ask for quieter corners when she needed to focus. They described the way his voice changed when he spoke to her, how he chose fewer words and left more space for her to answer. To some, it was simply kindness. To others, it suggested a deeper protectiveness that didn't have to be romantic to feel intimate. Meanwhile, the shadow of Sarah's posts kept drifting over the production. New captions hinted at a person who knows what really happens once the camera's cut, and people devoured them like coded messages. Ozan and Sinem kept their strategy, say nothing. That silence became its own headline. Were they ignoring the noise out of respect for the work, or avoiding confirmation of something private? Opinions split down the middle. A portion of the audience cheered them on for staying disciplined and not handing gossip sites an easy win. Another portion insisted that the silence itself was a confession. As shooting moved from Madrid's cool mornings to the humid evenings in Tenerife, the rhythm between Ozan and Sinem only grew more fluid. They carried each other through the action beats, learned each other's timing on dangerous stunts, and instinctively adjusted when the other faltered. During a complex chase, Sinem slipped on a slick patch as she rounded a corner, and without breaking the take, Ozan steadied her with a hand that never appeared in the shot. Later, during a demanding monologue, Sinem needed a second take, and Ozan stood just off camera, eyes locked on her, giving exactly the reaction she needed to find the emotional thread again. It wasn't dramatic, it was teamwork of the kind that feels rare and precious. All the while, social media played its own game. Fan pages pieced together every crumb. A shared coffee cup seen in the edge of a photo became evidence. A laugh overheard behind a closed door turned into a legend. The pair's restraint, no cozy selfies, no late-night restaurant pictures, no casually intimate captions, made those crumbs feel like feasts. Editors and influencers said the same thing, whether or not there was romance, they had captured the public's imagination as the duo to watch. The production team, careful not to fan flames or shut down enthusiasm, offered thoughtful comments when pressed. They emphasized how respectful Ozan and Sinem were, how much care they brought to every scene, and how their professional alignment elevated the entire series. But even within the team, there were moments when people simply stared after a take and whispered that it was different. Different how? Different like it was personal even when it wasn't supposed to be. Sarah's presence remained mostly virtual but undeniably influential. A late-night post appeared with a line about keeping promises when no one is watching. Another suggested that some people fall in love with the version of themselves they see on screen. The timing of these messages suspiciously lined up with days when promotional material featuring Ozan and Sinem made waves. It was as if the emotional barometer of someone outside the set was calibrated to what the public was seeing. In response, Ozan and Sinem doubled down on professionalism. They avoided sharing cars, split their media commitments, and kept their interviews strictly focused on craft. When asked directly about the speculation, they pivoted with grace. Ozan spoke about character psychology and the burden of carrying secrets. Sinem explained how trust between partners in a scene can make or break the delicate moments. Each time, they complimented the other's dedication without stepping over a line that would turn art into a headline. The longer this went on, the more the lines blurred for the audience. Viewers fell for their characters first, then for the possibility that the chemistry might be echoing in real life. People posted heartfelt messages about how rare it is to see two performers this attuned. Clips of their laughter between takes, shared by background players who couldn't help themselves, spread like contraband. A simple moment of Sinem reaching to fix a piece of lint on Ozan's jacket became a looping video millions watched with narrowed eyes and racing hearts. By the time later episodes were deep in production, their dynamic had become part of the show's DNA. Directors tailored shots to linger on their faces half a second longer. Writers leaned into the quiet tension that neither character could fully name. The crew, caught between wanting to protect them and being awed by what they were watching, acted like a shield when paparazzi sniffed around the edges of the location. Even so, the whispers never stopped, because whispers never do. Every day brought a new theory, a fresh clue, a bold prediction. Then came another scene that people would be talking about long after the series aired. It wasn't big or explosive. It was intimate. A confession delivered in a barely lit room, a promise made with a voice so soft the microphone had to be adjusted. When the director called cut that time, what broke the silence was not applause but a gentle exhale, as if everyone had been holding their breath together. The vulnerability felt real. The closeness felt earned. Those watching behind the monitors forgot they were looking at a staging of fiction. Outside the set, opinion leaders tried to make sense of it all. Some argued that deep trust can exist without romance, that a magnetic on-screen bond is the product of shared values and relentless rehearsal. Others pointed to timing, to subtle gestures, to the way their smiles stayed after a joke ended, and said there had to be more. The debate stretched across languages and time zones. People in Turkey, Spain, and beyond weighed in with stories about how these two had captured them. Through it all, Ozan and Sinem stuck to the pact that no one ever wrote down: protect the work, protect each other, and let the audience decide what story they want to tell themselves. Of course, the shadow of jealousy never left entirely. Sarah's messages continued to set off small fires. Nothing was explicit enough to condemn, but everything was pointed enough to inflame. Some fans took her side, accusing Ozan of emotional carelessness. Others defended him, saying that people can outgrow relationships and that respect sometimes looks like silence. A third group focused on Sinem, calling her gracious, grounded, and undeserving of the narrative being placed on her shoulders. The more polarized the conversation became, the more disciplined the pair stayed. Through late nights and early mornings, Ozan and Sinem kept delivering work that made everyone's job easier. They shared notes in corners, spoke in quick codes only they understood, and saved the production hours by syncing so naturally that scenes needed fewer takes. A lighting technician said it best when he muttered that some people are simply tuned to the same frequency, and when you see it, you know. The set kept moving, the cameras kept rolling, and this strange, tender mystery kept deepening under the heat of the lights. When the final weeks of filming arrived, the online conversation peaked. Edits of their best moments together circulated like proof of something only the internet could certify. People wrote long messages about why certain smiles meant more than they should, why a glance in a car scene looked like a secret, why a shared laugh sounded like relief. The more fans believed, the more each new frame felt charged. The show became more than a story, it became a vessel for hope, curiosity, and hurt feelings that didn't even belong to the viewers making the analysis. That's what powerful chemistry can do, it invites people to see their own longings reflected back at them. And so, every detail from the set of the Butterfly Labyrinth transformed into a conversation piece, the way Ozan walked a step ahead to clear space, the way Sinem measured her words before interviews, the split-second softness in the moments after cut. Their bond, whatever name you give it, changed the air, and everyone breathed it in. Is this the start of a romance, or a masterclass in professional trust? Only the two of them know, and they're not interested in speaking for the moment. Perhaps they're right to let the work stand untouched by the noise. Now I want to hear what you think. Do you believe that the friendship between Ozan Baba and Sinem will ignite into something more, or will they keep it anchored inside the frame, where it's already blindingly bright? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You're watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets, and I'll be here with more of the stories the industry tries, and fails, to keep quiet.